Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to today's episode of the Daily List Report. We have got one of my all-time favorite guests back on the show. His name is Jonathan Spears. He's team leader at Spears Group. It's part of the Scenic Sotheby's International Realty, and he's had an incredible year. I could probably go on and on here about Jonathan. He's got an incredible background in a bio. So one thing of note, and we're going to have him talk about this, is he recently closed on one of the most expensive, maybe the most expensive new construction home in the Florida Panhandle. This house had a name, so you know it was expensive. It was called Mont Blanc. It's a $14 million property right on the beach. It's absolutely stunning. So we'll talk a bit about that. He and his team have actually already crossed $200 million in sales this year, which is their best year ever, and that's amazing. And I think it's a tribute not only to Jonathan, but the team that he's built. And we're going to talk a little bit about those team dynamics. Jonathan's a smarty pants. He's going to get mad at me for saying that, but he started college at age 14, graduated at 19 from Florida State University, got a degree in business and finance, and then he went right into real estate. In fact, on our last show that he was on, we'll link to that as well. Probably a little thing will pop up right now. We talked a little bit about why he got into real estate, coming out of college at such a young age. And you can go back there and check that out. $600 million in sales before the age of 30, recognized by the Wall Street Journal as one of the top 100 realtors worldwide, top 15 in Florida, number one realtor in Northwest Florida. The list of accolades goes on and on. Also got up on screen right now a couple things, their website, so make sure you check out their website, Spears Group FL, so for Florida.com. Also, check him out on Instagram. He is at Jonathan M. Spears. So check that out and see what he's doing there. And if you're a Business Insider reader like I am, he's got lots of articles on Business Insider. So check those out as well. That's probably the longest intro I've ever done, but I'm going to bring him on. So Jonathan, I hope you're thoroughly embarrassed and welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. If I'm a little red, I'm definitely embarrassed. That was a mouthful, but I really appreciate the warm introduction. I feel like I'm at home here and just glad to be with you.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. No, it's all true. You earned all of it, so I'm just reading the list, But I totally understand what you mean. Jonathan, for those who missed the first episode, I would encourage them to go back and watch it. Maybe just give a quick overview on who you are, remind people where you're at, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jonathan Spears. I'm founder of Spears Group, and we work at Scenic Sotheby's International Realty. We're located in the Northwest Florida Panhandle. So most folks ask me, where is that? What is that? And I always tell them that I'm on the whitest sand beach in the United States with emerald green water. Our sand beaks when you walk on it. And I have only lived in this area. I was born and raised here, so very proud Floridian. And my team and I are one of the top teams in the U.S. So just very thankful to serve this market. We primarily serve second homes and enjoy doing it.
That's amazing. Maybe I'll embarrass you some more, but, for all you watching right now, one of the things I love about Jonathan is that he's just so gracious and nice and giving with his time. And so, again, I'd echo it back to you, but it also feels like coming home here. And so I enjoy these conversations that we're having, and I look forward to more in the future. All right. So I don't want to bury the lead here because, when I talk about selling a house that has a name like Mont Blanc, this $14 million property, people just want to know about that. Can you just talk a little bit? This is your biggest transaction, right? Clearly.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about how this came to be, what it represents. We chatted a little bit about sort of the shifting dynamics, right, of people working from home or maybe wanting to migrate to different locations. All of those things are sort of encapsulated, I think, in this one transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mont Blanc was an incredible sale. It was a property that we journeyed with over the last year, just trying to curate how do we bring to market a home that's never transacted in the market. So when you look around left and right up along the beach, there's really no comparison. And so trying to price that and market it in a way that was not just broad, right? We want to bring in the largest swath of buyer profiles to a mid 8-figure house we possibly could, but also focus it on local marketing as well, making sure it fit in with our area. And so we were very pleased not only to sell that property, but also sell it within a pandemic market, as we call it, which was one of the most interesting and volatile periods of time in our market period. So this property we tried to launch with the opening of our beaches. and we were able to get some major national press. The property really speaks for itself. It's absolutely beautiful. But also to have a legacy home. You know, folks right now have spent so much time at home. I know you're working from home, as is your staff. We certainly have been as well. And they look around them and they start to think, okay, what is it that we really want? You know, what is this life that we're living? And there was so much purpose put into the thought of lifestyle. And for us, when we curated the marketing aspect of a legacy home like Mont Blanc, it was all about how do we get people to experience this, especially amongst this pandemic, and how do we get them here safely to do so? So that curated approach allowed us to leverage outlets such as Forbes and Wall Street Journal, their Mansion Global section, New York Times, to broadly forecast what this property would be to somebody who could come down and experience Florida's Emerald Coast. We were very pleased. We ended up selling it for $14 million, unfurnished, essentially a shell to allow somebody to go in and create exactly what they want with the interiors.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible story in and of itself, but I always have an eye towards the future, as I'm sure you do. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking of a couple things. One is I'm thinking of the old adage, right, where you're supposed to buy like the cheapest home in the best neighborhood, right? And this is the opposite. This is clearly the best home in this neighborhood. But
Right.
you were able to do that, and so what I wonder about now is that has an opportunity to transform that market, right? You now have sort of an anchor tenant, so to speak, or a tentpole home there. How does that factor into your thinking? How does that factor into your plans as you think about coordinating with other developers for future properties?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because this property really was a gateway in and of itself. This year, 2020, has been challenging in a lot of different ways, but it's also challenged the price ceiling of our market. Prior to Mont Blanc trading, the highest sale in the Emerald Coast was 12 million. And it was a very specific location, a location that had produced a high price per square foot in the past. And what we ended up seeing is multiple transactions this year that exceeded that $12 million pricing barrier. So Lightning ended up striking 3 or 4 times to really keep pushing the market. So Mont Blanc was absolutely a stepping stone. We were able to take a business model per se and feed an area of the market that we didn't realize demand existed. So this luxury product that allows folks to come down, bring their families, have a multi-generational stay in a fortified concrete home, looking over one of the most beautiful beaches in the United States. It creates a lot of value, especially right now where being able to social distance and have a family retreat is really high priority for most families, no matter the wealth demographic.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I wonder, Jonathan. You don't have to give away your future plans here, right? But I would look at this and I'm like, okay, not only did we sort of put the tentpole in creating a category in this particular area, right?
Right.
But this is now creating potentially downstream opportunities. Like, does this change how you think about your business? In other words, I look at an opportunity where like this is the proverbial foot in the door, right? Like the foot is squarely in the door, right? And so are you looking at the neighbor's house and going, hey, would you like to sell your property, and maybe collaborating with developers and building more of these and having, billionaire row like they have in San Francisco?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they've got that in most major metropolitan areas. But for us in little old 30A, it's important to have that product in the market, and I think that we're certainly the ones at the forefront trying to pioneer that. It's interesting. We had a Wall Street Journal piece come out just a couple of weeks ago, and it was one of the first times that the Wall Street Journal has ever covered our area in depth and detail, down to the point where they took my recommendation of the best lobster quesadilla you could have in the United States right
No
here
way.
in North Carolina. So, it's really fun because we've had different profiles of buyers reach out from across the United States that didn't even know our area existed. And so not only to be able to complement our area, but also the product that we're bringing to market, it's certainly something that's going to be replicated, and we're excited to be at the forefront.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Jonathan. So switching topics, but I think still very relevant and related to this is, you obviously have a team, right? And that team, I imagine, is critical to your success in the numbers that you've been able to deliver on this year. So
Yeah.
I think as a starting point, let me ask you a very basic fundamental question. I've talked to numerous top agents, maybe not as top as you, but pretty top agents, and they are one man or woman bands, and they are committed to that. They're like, no one can do it as well as I can, and they can acknowledge to me that if they had a team, they could potentially do more, but they just do it all themselves. And I feel like I've talked to enough agents that that's a bit of a mindset, right? There's a bit of a mindset where like I'm going to do everything versus I'm going to spend my time and energy on building a team because that's the best way to build a business. So, in your experience, can you talk a little bit about that, the sort of the two sides, that dichotomy there between the mindset of I'm going to do it myself versus I'm going to build a team, and then what it takes to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think every agent starts off with, I'm going to do it myself, right? As agents, we have our time and we invest our time and we give it so freely. And when you start realizing that you miss opportunities because you're one track focused, is when you decide to leverage other people. And that may be hiring assistants. I mean, I know agents throughout the United States who are at the absolute top of their game, and they may have 15 assistants, and they don't necessarily
Wow.
look at a team as 15 other agents that they're trying to feed and all hold together, but they look at it as we've got 15 different moving bodies that are all working towards the same goal. And I think regardless of the team aspect and the team dynamic, that's the most important part, is everybody's in unison on their goal setting. For me, I realized very quickly that missed opportunity just keeps me up at night.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go to bed and stop thinking. I mean, there were so many different people that I still needed to respond to. As if I was working as a single agent, it'd be very difficult to give the same level of service to as many folks that that had the demand for that service. And so I realized that having other people that align well with my goals and visions was very important to growing my business. I mean, there's only so much you and I can do in a day. If you think about a large corporation, let's just take Walmart, for example. Very middle of the road, but one of the most successful companies ever.
Mm-hmm.
And, the single thought there is we want to provide value to our customers. The best way for you to provide value is in our business is being available, and
Yeah.
not just being available, but having systems and processes that keep your customer organized, keep your business organized. And so I saw an opportunity to scale the success that I was having as a single agent, and then providing value to other agents in the market that align well with my personal vision and our business goals. So that's where team fundamentals come into play.
It makes perfect sense, Jonathan. And I think that, I'm the kind of person, if I was a practicing real estate agent, would have the same mindset, right? How do I put in processes and how do I scale this team? Because like you said, at the end of the day, availability is everything. I mean, it really is. If you look at, and you know these better than I do, the stats on lead response time. I mean, we're talking seconds, right? And frankly, this is one of the areas where Zillow and some of these other guys have done, frankly, a good job of understanding that and putting in call centers in place where if you click that button, your phone's going to ring like 2 seconds later, right? And that,
Yeah.
I think, is important. How when did you start building your team, Jonathan? So how long did you practice as a solo person? Who was your first hire? What does your team look like? Let's talk a little bit about that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had mentioned when I realized I was missing business is when I needed to let go of certain aspects of my business. So maybe there was something that I was doing from a systems and process standpoint, like writing every aspect of a contract, or communicating with my photographer at every little second that they're there. Those are all things that we as agents want to do. We know we're good at it. We know we're going to do it absolutely well, but it's not something that's really the highest and best use of our time
That's
if
right.
we're capable of putting somebody in place that can focus solely on that task, and they can figure out how to do that task maybe even better than we can. And so when I realized that I needed help was when I was missing things and I wasn't able to grow my business. And so I started by hiring an assistant, right? Just very simple, hiring somebody who was full-time, working alongside me in the trenches, that could really pick up where I call them dollar productive tasks. The dollar productive tasks that I didn't necessarily see as productive as, let's just say, prospecting, right? You get on a process of prospecting, you're always going to have lead flow. But as soon as you move your focus from prospecting over to, let's just say photography, because I mentioned it earlier, and you're just focused on making sure you're getting the best possible photos, and the best photos are going on your Instagram page. You're missing this prospecting piece over here, and maybe you're still hitting it a little bit, but not as in full focus as you could possibly be doing that. So when I hired an assistant, I really tried to hire to all of my weaknesses, which my assistant's extremely organized. I would say that she is the glue to my business, in the sense that I'm always being pulled in different directions. Organization doesn't come naturally. And so it's something I've learned over time, especially with her help of putting these systems and processes into place. And, that was probably the base foundation for Spears Group. And it still continues to be the glue that keeps Spears Group together today.
It's really interesting. So you said something there, and I want to give like at least how I think about it, right? So one of the things that my executive team and I talk about a lot is we say, how can we fire ourselves from certain jobs? And I think it's just an interesting way to think about it. It's basically the same thing that you said, which is at the end of the day, not only is, let's say on a dollar for dollar basis, your time more valuable than someone else's for a given task. That's just factually true.
Yep.
But also importantly, as you said, that there are frankly people that are better at those jobs than you would be, right? And so, for what it's worth, so last time you and I talked, right, you said eat the frog, right? And so, and that was like, we titled the episode and people like latched onto that, which is awesome, right? And so, not that this is the name of this episode title, but it's something to latch onto, which is this idea of firing yourself from your jobs. And I think that's the right mindset to have. But I'm curious about something, Jonathan. I want you to talk about this. Is one of the hardest things about building a team is that you now have to spend, frankly, an inordinate amount of time making sure that your team not only is aligned with your vision, but stays aligned with that vision. You got to deal with company culture and all of that alignment. So can you talk a little bit about a high-performing team, those dynamics between people, right? How do you drive a constant, committed culture, but also alignment with where you want to go?
Right. Well, let me just back up for 1 second. What I tell my team and what I tell myself is get out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
We get in our way so many times because we think that we know it all. And one reason that I'm aligned with Sotheby's International Realty is because I love the collective brilliance that the brand brings to the table. Even our local company, people ask me all the time, why haven't you opened your own brokerage yet? And I always tell them, I'm waiting to be the smartest person in the room. As soon as I'm the smartest person in the room, that's when I exit.
Yeah.
But I've yet to be that. And so at Spears Group, that's when I look at people to bring to the table, I'm making sure that I'm not the smartest one in the room. There are members of my team that they're going to be better buyer's agents than I can be. I don't necessarily have the time to devote wholeheartedly to somebody, sit in my car, drive them around, for a whole weekend and look at, 30 properties. Right. So, but there is somebody that is on my team that I would be my personal shopper, right? They are just so good at what they do. Their empathy level is so high. They absolutely care. And so when you look to develop that culture, you're looking at your own weaknesses, right? You're looking at your own gaps in your business and you're saying, okay, who's going to fill this gap and is going to enhance our team culture and enhance our customer experience? From a service standpoint, whether you're in the hotel industry or you're in this real estate sales business or you're even medical device sales, it's all about service. It's all about experience. And when you boil that down, it's very simple aspects of what people desire. From a seller standpoint, they want performance. And then they also want to enjoy the process along the way. And then from a buyer standpoint, they equally expect a certain level of performance, but they also want somebody who's going to be there for them. They need an advocate. So we really try to lean into different principles in our business model that I can't solely provide. And so when I look to hire, it's slow and it's very calculated to make sure the team culture is never compromised and always enhanced.
It makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. I love that perspective, and I think I share that in many ways. So what does your team look like today? How many people are on your team, roughly? Do you have like weekly team meetings where you get alignment? Do you guys, like, what kind of stuff do you do to make sure everybody's on the same page?
Yeah, so my team today looks different than my team 6 months ago, and then my team a year ago, and then my team 5 years ago, which 5 years ago is when I decided to hire an assistant. So I've been doing a strictly team-based sales business for the last half decade. And so, where I'm at today is also different than a lot of other team structures that I've seen throughout the US. And for us, I try to bring on team members that are partners in a sense. So I bring on folks that would be listing partners and would provide value on the listing side. And I bring agents that are agents that specifically work with buyers.
Yeah.
So we all kind of identify our roles and try to be very well rounded in our role. What I would say, though, from today's aspect is that I've got a strong administrative team. I've got my executive assistant, and we have a director of operations who's boots on the ground. They focus on operations, whereas my executive assistant is at a $30,000, or excuse me, 30,000-foot viewing platform where they can see everything that's going on and make sure that we're as nimble as possible. And then I also have a team CEO. So I've got someone who specifically leads the agents on my team so that I can focus solely on production. So I've stepped back from a lot of the executive operations in the sense that I'm the founder. I focus on pushing production for the whole team, but I also focus on my business and my customers as well. And then we've got agents that are absolutely incredible and are an extension of myself and then some, right? There's certain agents that their roles are even more pivotal than mine in certain transactions.
Interesting. No, that makes a lot of sense, Jonathan. You know, one of the things that fascinates me about having these conversations with great agents like yourself is I try to find either the parallels or the opportunities that may exist to shift thinking in certain ways as it relates to us as a technology company. That was super vague, but what I mean by that is that there are certain ideals that tech companies in particular sort of hold near and dear to their heart, right? That sometimes I see real alignment with out in the real world, right? And sometimes I don't. One of the values that we hold very near and dear to our hearts is transparency. We are radically transparent as a company. We share all of our numbers. We talk about all of that stuff with our staff. Everybody knows where we are on any given day. And I talked to an agent recently who actually publishes, I should say, all of his production numbers, his finances, P&L on the internet, right, for other agents to learn from. So I saw some alignment there, but I don't see that in a lot of places. Here's my question for you. As it relates to sort of building a team, one of the things that and this may not be a tech ideal, maybe unique to us as a business, but we look at this sort of family of people that we bring into the company, and we want them to be the best versions of themselves. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they will ultimately be that person with us. In other words, we're prepared to lose people so long as we've given them an opportunity in our company to learn and grow in ways that matter to them, even if they then express that in another company or starting their own business or whatever. And I bring this up, Jonathan, not for you per se, because I can tell your mindset is in the right place, but a lot of agents I talk to have a very sort of closed-minded mindset to this is mine, that's yours. Like, it's different, like not transparent, not radically candor. There's a book called Radical Candor. It's a great book. It's one of our values. We practice radical candor, even if it hurts, right? So talk a little bit about how you think about the industry or your team, however you want to address that. I'm trying, along with you and others, to help make this industry better than it is today, right? That's the goal here.
Absolutely. No, it's so timely that you mentioned this actually, because we talked about team culture, especially as a team grows. My team is now at a 10-person total. So, 10 people may not sound like a lot, but it is. And for me, getting 10 people, more than just one person, to align in values requires transparency. It requires everybody to be very transparent, not just in, the role that they want to have on the team, but the role that they're in. Transparency in the numbers that they expect. So when we do vision planning, goal setting, we're looking at, what is our need financially, collectively as a whole? What do we need? What do we need to operate? what is our overhead? So just like you, I mean, we're very transparent on where our numbers are at, both as a team collective and then also from a market standpoint. What does production look like? And then from an individualistic basis, I try to get with every team member and understand what is their real why. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we get up every day? What's our focus on selling real estate? Is it just to make a paycheck, which for some that are highly money motivated, it may be, and that's okay. But just peeling back the onion to understand why do we do this every day, and how can I make them not just a better salesperson, but a better advisor to their customers? And really, how can I be the best advisor as a team leader to help them reach the lifestyle goals that they have? So just to your point, an industry transparency is so important. I think if I lived, closed off and in my own little bubble, it wouldn't be good for anybody. So it's one reason that I want to sit down and do this with you. I want to share with others so that they can step into success. I've been so fortunate. I'm 28 years old, and I've been doing this for the last decade, right? I got my license as soon as I turned 18. So just as early as I could possibly get it. And as most people know, when you're young in any business, a lot of folks will look at you and just immediately assume something, whether it's positive or negative. I think for me, bringing a certain level of energy to our team has been really important, especially because we've got a very young team. And so trying to help those guys navigate through the sales dynamic is important. But that why is very important. Why is really everything. And I think when you look at transparency in your business from a numbers standpoint, you should also look at transparency as to why are you actually doing this? What are your intentions? And ultimately, what does that why equal out in your life long term?
I couldn't agree more. You said the operative word there, right? Which is a short word, which is why. It's something that we strive for in everything. At one point, Jonathan, there's this great meme, we call him Little Baby Pope, and it says, "Why though?" THO, right? Question mark.
Yeah.
And I printed these things out, versions of this all over my team's room, right? To make sure that, because it's so easy to fall into the tactics, to the what, right? You sit in a meeting, you're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And the first thing that people on your team do oftentimes is they jump into execution mode. Okay, let's make this thing happen. And they think that's the right thing, rather than taking a step back and questioning why that in the first place. And it's an exhausting thing, frankly. It's a very exhausting thing to always drive to the why, but it's so critically important. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think we're very much aligned on that. And again, I just have to say, I mean, kudos to you. You've had a hell of a career. You're only 28 years old. Like, it's a testament to the hard work you've put in, the breaks you got along the way, right? Your intelligence, all of those things. So it's awesome because, you know better than I do that when you're young, and I know this from my early days as an entrepreneur, right? People are like, well, who are you? Like, who's this kid here? Like, you want to sell this house? Come on, grow up, right? Literally grow up, right? And so it's pretty impressive and it's awesome. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh yeah, of course. No, it's my pleasure.
So, Jonathan, did I miss anything today? I think this is a great conversation. We're 30 minutes in. It's hard to believe. It just goes by like that.
Are we
anything
already
cover
30
today?
minutes in?
Yeah. Can you believe it? It's hard to believe.
Very easy when you love what you're speaking about.
Yes, it is. It's always a pleasure talking. So, Jonathan, why don't we do this? Why don't we break for today's show? We're definitely going to have you back on, and we'll dive into some more specific topics. Congrats again on Mont Blanc. It's a gorgeous home, and I can't wait to see how you leverage that, because the best entrepreneurs out there take an opportunity and they make the most of it, and I have no doubt that you're going to do that. So thank you for that, and congrats on that transaction.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jonathan, we'll talk to you again real soon.
Look forward to it.
All right. So there you have it. That's today's show. Love talking to Jonathan. You can just tell, I don't want to get too out there, but just in his spirit and who he is, right? He is a giving, thoughtful person, and he's accomplished a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. Although it's been a decade, it's hard to believe he's 28 and he's been in the business for 10 years. It's pretty impressive what he's done. But, a lot of things in that conversation, I think, make sure that you take home and you think about these things. the why, such an important thing. Make sure that you are driving not only your own understanding of your why and the why of your business and the opportunities, but also that of your team. Also talk to Jonathan a little bit, of course, about how to build a team and why he built a team and what role that team serves within, his business. And I know a lot of you out there are resistant to that or are afraid. And I think it's fear. You're afraid to give up control. You're afraid someone else is not going to be able to do it as well as you can. And that all speaks to reframing, right? If you reframe that to say that, in fact, there are people that are better at those things than me, then it changes, I think, how you think about building a team and those opportunities that can come from that. Because at the end of the day, as Jonathan said, it's all about serving your customers. And if that's a better path to serving your customers, then that's the path that you should take. So I'll get off my high horse today. That's it for today's show. Again, if you're here, please consider subscribing and click that little bell so you're notified. You don't miss great guests like Jonathan sharing their wisdom and learnings from the industry. So until tomorrow, be safe, be healthy, be happy, get after it, make sure you understand the why. We'll talk to you soon.